Welcome to our third annual Faculty Hall of Fame, which, due to the circumstances we find ourselves in 2020, is being brought to you virtually. I'm Curt Asher, I'm Dean of the Library, and we're all very grateful that you stopped by for this virtual ceremony. Normally, we enjoy a luncheon in the December room during this event, but as I said, that wasn't doable this year. And next spring, if we can, we'll recognize the 2020 inductees again, complete with a great meal and opportunity to socialize at the 2021 event. The Hall of Fame was initiated because we felt the need to commemorate the great faculty that touched so many lives during a career at CSUB. Being a college faculty member is far more than a job. It's a higher calling that requires putting your students ahead of yourself and guiding people into the next phase of their lives. The work we do places great demands on us, and these awards recognize people whose efforts went above and beyond what was required. They helped build a community here, and they led the campus in the right direction. Today, we're honoring 6 of the most distinguished faculty members. The late Dr. Solomon Yashari, and he'll be introduced by Dr. Tomas Martinez. Dr. Doug Davis, and he'll be introduced by Dr. Joel Haney. The late Charles McCall, and he'll be introduced by Dr. Jackie Kegley. Doctors Bob Horton and Rob Negrini, both introduced by Geology Chair Tony Rathburn. First, I want to thank our outreach librarian, Kristen Gallant, for putting this event together. Without her, none of this would have happened. I also want to thank the Faculty Hall of Fame Selection Committee. They are librarians Andrea Anderson and Chris Livingston, professors Emerson Case, Luis Vega, Nyakundi Michiaka, Kiwei Sheng, Emily Callahan from Campus Programming, Linda Lara from the Alumni Association, and Ryan Dracos from Mission Bank. I'd also like to thank Provost Vernon Harper and his office for their support. I'd also like to thank Ellie Vergon, Shelby Parker, and the University Advancement staff. And finally, the library's PR outreach team of Kathy Driscoll, Eileen Montoya, Donato Cruz, and Frank Aguirre. Now, here with today's introductory remarks is our president, Dr. Lynette Zalesny. Thank you.
It's an extraordinary privilege for me to be able to join you to honor such an amazing group of inductees into the CSUB Faculty Hall of Fame, the highest honor a faculty member can receive from our university. This is a very special occasion for all of us, and for me personally, it is special because as a former faculty member, I know each of you has played an important role in the success of our deserving students over the years. You've challenged them, encouraged them, mentored them, inspired them to become leaders and contributors, and I'm so proud of your investment in our students. Today, we honor 6 faculty members who represent more than 200 years of combined teaching, research, and service to our great university. Let me share heartfelt congratulations to Dr. Doug Davis from music, Emeritus Dr. Robert Horton from geology, Dr. Solomon Ogabedi Asher from English, Dr. Charles McCall from political science, Dr. Robert Negrini from geological sciences, and Emeritus Dr. Oliver Rink from history. We celebrate you, your passion, your commitment, and your love to our university and to our students. We are a university on the rise, and we owe our deepest thanks to you for that, your dedication, hard work, all that you have done, and the critical role that you've played in moving California State Bakersfield forward. You are the standard bearers of excellence, and you have brought honor and respect to our university. On behalf of a grateful university and the thousands of students whose lives you have transformed, I say thank you and congratulations.
It is my pleasure to be part of honoring those inducted into the 2020 CSUB Faculty Hall of Fame. These inductees have made significant contributions to CSUB as well as our own community. All of you are a great source of inspiration and pride for our students, faculty, and staff on campus. And thanks to your good work and leadership, our institution is a better place. As a past faculty member myself, I understand the need to be engaged with our students along with our community, and this year's nominees went above and beyond in their storied careers. The late Dr. Solomon Isiuri helped revise and design curriculum and programs to include multicultural and international dimensions. Not to mention, he founded Orpheus in 1973, which published the work of more than 2,500 students. The founder of the beloved Bakersfield Jazz Festival, Dr. Doug Davis, helped generate hundreds of thousands of dollars in scholarships for CSUB students, and all the while teaching music theory and composition for countless students on campus. For over 30 years, Dr. Robert Horton brought in over $8 million in research and support and taught over 20 different courses. Since he wasn't busy enough, he spent 10 years as the department chair and 2.5 years as the interim assistant vice president for grants and sponsored research. All the while spending 21 years serving this community as the director of the California Well Sample Repository on campus. A founding faculty member, the late Charles McCall, spent 33 years on campus teaching political science and was the founding chair of the political science department. He also served in President Ford's administration. Dr. Robert Negrini spent several decades on campus, mentoring graduate and undergraduate students in research and publication. He obtained over $12 million in external funds during his career and was the founding director of the California Energy Research Center, as well as the Center for Research Excellence in Science and Technology, also known as CREST. Dr. Oliver Rink spent 30 years teaching history at CSUB and served in many roles on campus, such as the chair of the history department, assistant dean of the School of Arts and Sciences, and chair of the Faculty Affairs Committee of the Academic Senate, just to name a few. Your legacy at CSUB is defined by much more than this recognition. It is marked by the imprint you leave on our next generation of leaders. We are fortunate to have had you as educators and mentors at our university.
I'm Joel Haney. I am chair of the CSUB Department of Music and Theater. My memories of Doug go back to actually my hiring in 2006. At that time, Doug was chair of the music department and was extremely welcoming to me and an incredible mentor for me over many years when our time at CSUB overlapped. Doug has been an extremely valuable member of the CSUB faculty, of the Bakersfield community, and also of the larger national and global community committed to high quality music. Doug was a member of the faculty for 35 years. He taught theory, he taught music composition, he directed the jazz ensembles, he also directed other instrumental ensembles. Again, he chaired the music department. Doug established performance opportunities and series that not only featured our students, but also featured high-profile guest artists. The Legends of Jazz concert series that brought world-class musicians to CSUB to interact with and teach our students and to perform alongside them on stage. He established the Bakersfield Jazz Festival with his wife Adele and directed it for 30 years. It's been said, actually by a former president of CSU Monterey Bay, that Doug has probably done more to put CSUB on the international map than any other individual or group of people. Doug was named Outstanding CSUB Professor in the 1980s. He was named an Outstanding Professor of the entire CSU in 2003 and received the Wong Family Excellence Award. He received multiple awards from the Arts Council of Kern and also the Bakersfield Centennial Certificate of Achievement. Doug's compositions have been performed and recorded nationally and internationally, and he has won several awards for his compositions as well. His jazz compositions have been recorded by jazz greats, including Chick Corea. All of this adds up to a tremendous record of achievement and a very well-deserved place in the CSUB Faculty Hall of Fame.
Wow. Thank you, Joel, for being such an incredible friend and colleague in the music program. You know, my gratitude to the entire campus overflows, especially for my students, who always inspired me and challenged me. Sharing with them was always my delight. I'm deeply moved for this honor. It has been my privilege to serve the university.
During the last 25 years, the university has always been a partner with the Kern County community, supporting not only sports, but the arts.
I think the education that you can receive here on this campus can compare with any education anywhere. Our music faculty is very strong. We have certainly a unique professional orchestra, and for a campus of our size, that is quite unique. Gordon Mailing heads that up. Jerry Kleinsesser built the choral program. He's also in music history, and he's in the music department. And Jerry is also one of these great supporters of what you want to do. He was in charge when I said, what do you think of a jazz festival here on our campus? He said, you can do it. He turned over the choral program to Robert Provencio, who has really taken that group to a new level. They went performed at Carnegie Hall, and so wonderful things happen in our music program.
I nominated Bob for the CSUB Hall of Fame because of his remarkable contributions in research, service, and teaching. During his 32-year career at CSUB, Bob taught more than 20 different courses in geology and science and received several teaching awards from CSUB and regional organizations. Bob also mentored students in both at the undergraduate and graduate level, and many of his publications include student co-authors. Bob was PI or co-PI on 28 successful research grants, totaling over $8 million. These funds supported research and state-of-the-art research equipment. He has given many invited research presentations both in the United States and abroad. Bob has an equally impressive record in service. He served in many impactful committees at CSUB and was department chair and served as interim AVP for grants and sponsored research. Bob has also served in many leadership roles in community organizations, including serving on the Kern County Science Foundation Board of Directors. Bob has made many lasting contributions to CSUB, his profession, and the community. And I want to congratulate Bob on his well-deserved induction into the CSUB Hall of Fame.
Well, thank you. This is a very unexpected honor, and I'm really honored that I'm going in with such a group of faculty members who are inductees in this. It's not something I ever expected. I felt very fortunate to get this job in Bakersfield. As far as I'm concerned, I've got the best job that anybody could ever have. I worked with a wonderful group of people in the geology department who always tried to help one another out. The university presented a very nice opportunity for a mixture of service and research, as well as working with the students. And I just feel that I had a very lucky career, and I'm very, very happy that and excited to receive this honor.
Okay, well, first, thank you for inviting me to do this, to maybe share some memories and some reflections on Solomon Yashere. I've actually now, as I arrived as kind of the young, cool prof on campus many years ago, and Solomon was already one of the established professors, but I arrived 35 years ago, and I'm just right now at the FERP retirement stage, but Solomon was here when I arrived, and he was already considered just a real, just a real special part of this campus. CSUB is a special place, and I've been here for a lot of it, and Solomon was here for 44 years on the campus, so it's a special place. And I say that Solomon was a big part of making it a special place. He was a special person that was part of this. But anyway, just in terms of his background, and I'm sure there's you're doing other interviews and other things, but I thought I won't get into too much of the detail. But he arrived back in 1972. The campus opened in 1970, and by 1972, he was already here, the Department of English and Communications. He arrived, and actually, as I one of the stories was that he held a record for advancing from assistant to associate and tenure. He actually did that in 2 years. He arrived in 72, and within 2 years, he went from assistant to associate, tenured, and within 4 years from there, he was a full professor. It takes the rest of us much longer to do that. But but that had to do with, he already had arrived with standing as an academic, as a scholar, and immediately with his teaching and his impact on the campus, he advanced as a professor very quickly. But I'll just say that, I won't go through all of his resume information, but he held all the various roles in his department and the programs and campus committees and actually as campus administrator at one time. So he had many roles, and he's known for all of those. But I'll just say that some of the things that you probably should know about him is that I never took a course from him, obviously, but I just knew about some of his teaching and some of his scholarly work. He was someone who he taught in English and communications, but he taught Shakespeare. I primarily knew him as the Shakespeare professor, and but he also taught African literature and African American literature, and he taught in the African oral tradition. That was one of his special areas of study and scholarship. But he was somebody who lived in the moment. And he was with you, or whether you were a student, whether you were a faculty person, an administrator, he lived in the moment. He was with you at all times. And students appreciated that greatly, as in helping to prepare the nomination for the Faculty Hall of Fame. As I tried to collect some quotes and comments from students and faculty and others, and just said, what would you share with me and what I could find. And I came across quotes from students who just talked about him. One of them said, I'm trying to remember the wording. One of them mentioned that Professor Yassere was a combination of joyous energy, moving exuberance, and clear perception contained by careful patience and sensitivity. He was patient and sensitive, beyond description. He was that way with students. Students said that he was known for always having an open door and an open mind. And he always gave them a critical comment, but very honest and constructive always. So students, many of his students went on to become award-winning writers and playwrights and professors. So he left behind in his students much of what he was about in terms of his scholarship and teaching and his ways of interacting with students and with others. He was famous to me for he spent a lot of time on campus. He would walk around campus and he'd sit down somewhere. He'd find a comfortable spot on a bench or somewhere, and he would talk to people as they went by. And he did that with me many times. I was usually rushing. Right? I was kind of the young guy, trying to move my career along and rushing along from classes and whatever it might be. And he always had a way of calling you over and saying, sit down. And I'd say, Solomon, I'm in a rush. He said, it's not that important. Sit down. So I'd sit down, and then he'd say, and how's your family? How are you enjoying your students? How are you doing? And when he was with you that way, you were the only thing important to him. He was completely in the moment, and you were the only thing that mattered. So we all knew him that way. Other faculty, as I say, he was a mentor to many of us in many ways, but also in that way, he placed importance on his students and the campus and on faculty. On the campus, he was highly regarded by the administration. He was a very good friend of Dr. Arciniega, President Arciniega, who was our president for 21 years on the campus from the 80s into the 2000s. And I had opportunity to work with Dr. Arciniega for a few years as assistant to the president. But Solomon, he had worked for President Arciniega as an administrator, and then he decided that the classroom and being out with the students was really what he preferred to do. But during the time that I was connected with the president, Solomon, he often would be invited in, or he'd send message to the president saying, well, if you got a little bit of time, I'd like to stop by. And my recollection was that the president would say, tell Solomon I'm available, tell him to come over. And anytime, middle of the day, any time of the day, he'd walk in and he'd sit with the president and he'd talk about the campus, about what's going on with faculty and students, and where he saw the campus going. And he just had a way that he had the respect of everyone, as they say, with administrators, students, faculty. But as a scholar, as I should say, he had a reputation much bigger than this campus. He was once selected among 50 faculty across the country, 50 professors, by the American Association for Higher Ed and the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching. He was selected as an outstanding professor for his scholarship, his teaching, and his leadership. So he was, and his scholarly work was, I came to really find out much of this later on, was translated into various languages across the world. And it was regarded that way, that it was translated in many of his works. And he wrote some highly regarded analyses, critiques of the work of Toni Morrison, Nobel Prize winning recipient in literature. But he did analysis of his work, and actually also of a famous author, Nigerian author, Chinua Achebe, as I came to find out who that was, because one day as I was crossing campus, as I did often see Solomon, not on campus, but in this particular case, he wasn't calling anybody over or sitting down with anyone. He was kind of just sitting by himself. And he looked like he was kind of in deep thought. And that was one time where I actually initiated the question. I said, what's going on with you, Solomon? What's going on? You look like you've got something on your mind. And he says, yes. He says, I've just been invited to write a nomination for a Nobel Prize in Literature for a Nigerian author. And he began to tell me about the author, Chinua Achebe. He began to tell me a little bit about him. He says, because I was given the honor, he said, I'm invited to write a nominating letter. And he said, it's, to him, it was like one of the big accomplishments of his career to just to be asked to write that kind of a letter, which he did. So I'm saying that he was, his scholarship was recognized far beyond this campus, far beyond the nation. So he really was a world scholar in that sense. But as I say, probably to me, the most important were those kind of moments when I crossed him on the campus. And in fact, he had gotten into the habit of sitting on a bench right outside of our building right here, because he, in the later years, he was in our building. We were all sharing the same building, and it was kind of a convenient spot for him to come down the breezeway right outside the door here. Kind of a nice, quiet, shady spot. And he would sit on the bench, and I'd cross him there. And then one day, it was on a Thursday. On a Thursday, and he was out there, and I again was rushing out the door, and he says, as he used to say, young man, come over. And I say, Solomon, I'm in a rush. I've got to get somewhere. He goes, no, you don't. He goes, that's not important. So sit down. So I sat down, and again, he did. He as they say, he was always in the moment, and he said, how are you doing? And he listened. He wanted you to share with him how you were doing. He says, how are your kids? And again, he would say, are you enjoying your students? So we had that kind of a conversation. And I usually would always say, but I got to go with him. I got to leave. I got to go. But I spent some time with him that day. And I said, we'll talk more later, Solomon. I said, I'll be back. I'll be back. So that was actually the last time I saw him. When I returned to campus on Monday, he had already passed away. over the weekend. So it was kind of a shock. But anyway, I say that we all lost a real prize at the campus. We lost Solomon.
When Solomon and I arrived in Bakersfield in September 1972, CSUB was a fledgling campus. It was then California State College. It was exploring new ideas, expanding the curriculum, rich with abundant opportunities. Solomon relished each venture, especially designing and teaching courses for his students, building programs tailored to the students' needs. What many may not recognize or know is that a lot of those courses and programs were new to Solomon as well as to the campus. His background was in rhetorical theory and Shakespeare, and he used his extraordinary acumen and research skills to expand into dimensions that the students needed for their lives and their careers. A few examples. We had a robust writing program at the college, at the university, but the focus, of course, was on writing for academia. And Solomon said, you know, our students may not all wind up in the academy. How about turning the focus a little bit to helping them with writing for the real world? He developed a course in technical writing, offering that in the early 80s. And the first term, the class had 4 students. So of course that was not sufficient enrollment and it was about to be canceled. And he said to the chair, please don't cancel it. I have a great deal of confidence in this course that the students need it. I'll teach it for free. Of course, that was fine. He could teach it for free as an overload. That first term, he taught those 4 students. The following term, there were 2 sections, full. And since then, technical writing has been offered in multiple sections every term at the campus. He similarly modified the Masters in English to include Masters in the teaching of writing, and he was instrumental in expanding communications from an emphasis into a degree program and ultimately helping the entire department emerge on its own. That same creativity was part of Solomon's enthusiasm in pursuing research and scholarship, especially as his writing helped him improve his teaching and the students' apprehension of literary works. Sometimes he traveled to Nigeria to record the oral tradition, the storytellers who were then a dying breed and may no longer exist. And in one instance, he transcribed into Edo the murder of Adesuwa, and then translated it into English and published it. So historically, that record now exists because of the unique contribution he made. He did similar things when he published an article on, "Pardon me, Professor, why do I have to read Othello?" Because Othello's a tough go for many students, especially students from diverse backgrounds. And Solomon wanted other teachers to know that it could be done and that it should be done. I believe that article was cited by ETS, Educational Testing Service, as certainly recommended and may have been required reading for high school English teachers that year. Tomas is right. Solomon did study the works of Chinua Achebe. He was invited to write an article, a letter of nomination for Achebe to the Nobel Prize Committee. And one of the articles that Solomon did, called Narrative Techniques on Things Fall Apart, has been republished multiple times in several languages, English obviously, French and German as well. And most recently it was published in a Norton anthology or a Norton edition of Things Fall Apart. And the Norton edition says this is a classic work of literature. It's an imprimatur. It's a high benchmark. And the Norton edition of a work will also include about, 10, a dozen essays. If your essay is in there, that means it is a quintessential piece of scholarship in the Chebe. That's where Solomon's Narrative Techniques is now published. And so he was especially proud that Norton recognized the stature of his contribution there. The kinds of ways in which he adapted his service to the community mimic what he did in teaching and in scholarship. He was, at the invitation of Dr. President Tomas Arciniega, the founding director of Diversity Services. He chaired the Department of English. But what he wanted to do was to give more students more opportunities, and so he was instrumental in several scholarship programs, co-chairing, for example, and co-founding the Ernest B. Williams Scholarship. In the early days, back in 1972, when we first came to the campus, and I'll show you a picture from those early days. Here's Solomon, here, walking across the campus in front of what is now Administration West. It was at the time the offices for the president, who was Paul Romberg. And these are the trailages where the wisteria grew. He always had that briefcase, which we still have. And he was always excited to walk across the campus, as Tomas said, to meet and greet and to interact with everyone he saw. One of the ways in which he helped in those early days was to take under his wing the students who were athletes. He was the first coach for the soccer team, and he often would take the students who were in athletics and read them the riot act and say, you know, athletics is wonderful, I'm very proud of you, finish your degree, finish your degree, finish your degree. One of those fellows from the 72, 73, 74 basketball team listened. He finished his degree. He became mayor of his town. He came to Solomon's memorial service some 40 years later to say thank you and to say that his own son was becoming a professor of English like Solomon. Solomon's worldview, his philosophy of life, was steeped in that profound wisdom of the West African oral tradition. That tradition was honed, deepened, enriched over millennia. And its wisdom informed all of Solomon's efforts, teaching, scholarship, service, and expressed best in Proverbs. One hand cannot wash itself clean, Solomon often reminded us. It needs the help of the other. Thus, he enjoyed so much interacting with students, staff, administrators, faculty. All were his colleagues. All were his equals. All were his friends. That interaction, whether on a bench in the sun, in a classroom, over a cup of coffee in the cafeteria, in a hallway, around a conference table at a meeting, that exchange of ideas, sometimes clash of ideas, that invigorated Solomon's 44-year career. Students adored him. They painted his portrait. They brought him gifts. Most important to him was that they took his advice and they finished their degrees. They built themselves important lives. One of Solomon's students said, Solomon's heart was big enough to embrace all mankind. What distinguished Solomon then was his all-embracing heart, evidenced via his humanity, his compassion, his inclusiveness, and his dedication to helping others succeed. For his great heart, then, Solomon should be remembered. Thank you so much, Tomas, for your kind, thoughtful nomination. And thank you all of our colleagues at Cal State, for recognizing, remembering, and honoring Solomon.
Hi, I'm Jackie Kegley. I'm professor of philosophy and director of the honors program at California State University, Bakersfield. And it's my distinct honor and pleasure to have nominated Dr. Charles H. McCall for the Faculty Hall of Fame. Dr. McCall and I were longtime colleagues and longtime friends. We did some traveling together, and I knew him as a colleague in many different ways. Dr. McCall was one of our first faculty members. He came to CSUB in 1970 from Indiana University, where he had gotten his degree and had been teaching. He was the founder of the political science department and oversaw that department for a number of years. Dr. McCall was very active on campus. He was involved in the college council and the academic senate, and was very interested in athletics and attended many of the basketball games. And there is a Kegley McCall Award that's given to the team with the highest GPA. He was very supportive of athletics, did a lot of fundraising for them. But most of all, he was a much beloved teacher. His students just were so admired of him. He was a great lecturer in class. He helped his students in many ways. He was always interesting and lots of fun. And he became and brought fame to CSUB. He was served in President Gerald Ford's White House as the research director of their staff research office. And I guess they primarily did a lot of research on behalf of the president, wrote speeches for him. And he was there for several years and very active in politics at the time, traveled with President Ford and so on. Interesting thing about him, which a lot of us knew about, is he was a practicing magician. He was a member of the Magic Society, and he would consider himself an amateur, but he did a lot of magic for children, and he took a lot of colleagues to magic shows and introduced them to Lance Burton and other magicians. And so he was just an absolutely delightful colleague and very avid supporter of California State University, Bakersfield. And as I say, much admired by his students. His students always recall what a great teacher he was, and I think he's well deserving of the award to be in the Faculty Hall of Fame. On behalf of Dr. Charles McCall, I want to accept this award. Unfortunately, he lost contact with his family, and we have lost contact with his family. I know he had a favorite nephew, and if possible, I would try to contact that nephew and see if he would like the award. But we're very proud to have it. Our family considered him part of our family. They called him Uncle Charles, so I'd be happy to accept it.
Paul Romberg, who was the first president of the university, was on a trip east and stopped in Bloomington to interview me on the way back. That went very well. I was very thrilled, actually, by the kinds of things Paul was talking about. And then I flew here for my formal interviews early in January. Mm-hmm. When I came back for the interview, there were buildings going up.
What year was that?
1970, when we opened.
1970, okay.
I came in probably August of 1970, and I came for the interview in January. Mm-hmm. But it was still unoccupied, of course. There was nothing here. We were in an office building downtown on California Avenue. So I was responding more to the dream than to a physical reality, mm-hmm. Even when I was here in January. Romberg's dream was that we would be a very innovative university, or college actually, and that we would be very interdisciplinary.
Hi, my name is Tony Rathburn. I'm the chair of the Department of Geological Sciences at CSUB. I nominated Rob Negrini because of his significant achievements in teaching, research, and service. In recognition of his dedication and excellence in teaching, Rob received a number of teaching awards from regional organizations and CSUB. He also has a remarkable record of mentoring students and involving them in publishable research, and continues to do so as an emeritus professor. In addition to a remarkable publication record in top research journals, during his career at CSUB, Rob obtained over $12 million in external research funds for research. This is truly an extraordinary accomplishment. Through National Science Foundation funding, Bob also established the ongoing CSUB Center for Research Excellence in Science and Technology. This is through 2 successive $5 million grants from the National Science Foundation over 10 years. In terms of service, Rob is the founding director of the California Energy Research Center on campus and has served in leadership roles in the Senate at CSUB and in several regional organizations. Rob has made many impactful and transformative contributions to CSUB, students, and the community. I sincerely congratulate Rob on his well-deserved induction into the CSUB Hall of Fame.
Okay, I was lucky to be part of a department that was able to put together an impressive 20 or 30 years of student-involved peer-reviewed research. Not an easy thing to do at a teaching school like CSUB, but it was in our DNA. You know, we all came from research-oriented R1 universities for when we were doing our PhD. And these members, by the way, include Bob Horton, Jan Gillespie, Dirk Barron, and before them, Jeff Thine, and Kurt Burmeister, and Stacy Lowy. Graham Andrews and Chris Crew also deserve a tip of the hat. But you know, it all started with Bob Horton's ability to bring in millions of dollars of equipment from outside sources. You know, there's not a lot of money at CSUB for equipment. So we had to get it all from the outside by writing grant proposals, and Bob was a master at it. In the flagship piece of equipment, the scanning electron microscope is still in service. And then, you know, with that foundation and also a foundation of peer-reviewed publications that we had going on for a while, we were able to get some large-scale funding from competitive sources like the National Science Foundation, predominantly, and but also the California State Department of Water Resources, some local industry, and with that additional money, we were able to support our students. And let me say a little bit about the students too. I was when I first found out that I had a job at CSUB, I was warned about the quality of students, and the people warning me were completely wrong. We ended up with a great cadre of students over the years, very talented. They were at CSUB, not because they had to be, because that was the best option for them. A lot of reasons, you know, family ties and things like that, but great group of students that worked really hard, and not only did they get to engage in significant research with us, but they were also a lot of those undergraduate efforts and master's theses ended up being published in peer-reviewed journals. So you know, tip of the hat to the students. So anyway, that sort of collection of super talented colleagues and students really paved the way for me to get some things done in terms of student-involved peer-reviewed research. That a lot of it was published in top journals. So, I was lucky. My work principally was in 2 fields, actually. climatology. I studied sediments of the lakes in the San Joaquin Valley and all throughout the West to look at evidence in the layers of lake sediments that are deposited over years to see patterns of rainfall over the past 30, 40,000 years. And then my other area of research, which got me going into this climatology, seems completely unrelated. I studied the behavior of the Earth's magnetic field when it goes through reversals of polarity.
The grant provides $1 million a year approximately, and that goes towards buying out professors' time, buying equipment, and most of the money really goes to student scholarships. For example, next year we're giving over $300,000 in scholarships to our graduate students and undergraduate students so that they can work on research projects while going to school. The grant is a 5-year grant and it's renewable for another 5 years. Our students are working on problems that are of interest both to agriculture and the petroleum industry.
Hello and good afternoon. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kristen Gallant and I am the outreach librarian at Walter Stern Library at CSUB. And I just wanted to have some closing remarks for all of you. As the outreach librarian at CSUB, it has been my pleasure to learn of the successes and experiences of this year's Faculty Hall of Fame inductees. Your accomplishments are not only humbling, but inspiring. It has been a joy to listen to all of you reminisce about the great changes made to our university. The Faculty Hall of Fame is a celebration of your scholarship and your service, but it also serves as an example of how individuals lift us all up. With this video, we acknowledge all that you've selflessly given to CSUB, and I wish you the best in all of your future endeavors. Thank you from all of us at CSUB and from the Walter Stern Library.